Good evening, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show, a show that's dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So this is day 13 of our ongoing December series called Progressive Rock Albums of the 1980s. So for those of you who are new or haven't been watching and don't know what we're doing here, so I'm basically taking one progressive album from each group. So I have 31 days, I'll have 31 progressive rock albums from 31 different groups. No group will get two, is what I'm trying to say. So then, it's basically I'm just listening to these albums for the first time. I've never heard any of them before. Some of the groups fall into four categories. Basically the groups that I know very well, but for some reason haven't listened to this particular album. Groups that I have a little bit of knowledge of, know a little bit about, but and may even have an album or two, but haven't actually listened to this particular album. The third level is groups that I know of or have heard of, but haven't listened to any of their music. And then today's group is another group that I never heard of before I started this, and I know nothing about their music going into this. And for me, this means that I'm going to experience some different things. I'm going to experience some, wow, this is way better than I would have thought. Why didn't I listen to this before? I may experience some, wow, this is very different, but I like it, or I may experience this is going to take some getting used to, this type of stuff. And then you get some like today where I am not going there. Okay, so today's album, having said that, is by The Thinking Plague. It's called Moon Songs from 1986, day 13. Okay, day 13 being December 13th. This will actually come out in the morning. So anyways, there's 5 tracks on this album. I found a cassette recorded view of this online and listened to it. I'll be honest, I had a great deal of difficulty following it. Yeah, difficulty. At first I didn't know what it was. It kind of defies classification. The whole album is like that, but the first song was the hardest because it was the first one I ever heard. And I think some bands purposely do that because they don't want to be classified. The problem with that type of mentality is that sometimes you're not classified because you're not music. And that's just sometimes the way I feel about it. I wouldn't go as far to say this isn't music, but there's a lot of elements of it that I don't think are music. And so, anyways, we're going to get to it. So, first of all, there's 5 tracks on the album. Lots of different instrumentation. They use a lot of different stuff from guitar, bass, drums, and normal stuff that you would hear, keyboards, synthesizers. Then you have a lot of percussion instruments I hear here. I think I may have heard a flute or two, and some other odd noises that I can't really hear right, and so I'm not really sure what they are, but they could be woodwind instruments. There may even be some brass instruments here, I'm not sure. But to me, this first song isn't too bad. It's a bit upbeat at the start, which was okay, but then there's a kind of a scraping kind of guitar noise that goes on. I would say the female, this is as close to vocals as this gets on this album. There's a female kind of saying and singing at the same time, but a lot of it's just noise too. It's really hard to follow. There's a lot of fascinating noises and a lot of fascinating noises that are put together with some. I think the instruments and the instrumentation on the album is very good. Most of the guys seem to have a really good handle on their instruments. However, I think they're putting this stuff together. It kind of sounds a bit like a bunch of different people in a room playing their instruments and not really having any particular goal in mind, and kind of playing together, and at some points it does sound a little musical, and other points it just sounds like noise. That's my impression. Not so much of this particular track. This particular track wasn't too bad, and but the next track I found very difficult to listen to. A lot of scattered stuff, harsh noises, repetitious parts. So what they like to do is they'll have this part, and I see this in the remaining songs here. Maybe not, I didn't see it in the first part because I wasn't looking for it, but I see a lot of where they'll have 4 or 5 different instruments playing a repetitious part that goes on, and then it'll change into something else. Or you could use the word morph if you want, morphs into something else. And then sometimes it's an abrupt change. They'll be going along at a certain way, and then abruptly it'll change into something completely different. There's no, like, it just does that, and it does that a few times. What other thing? I made a few notes here. I just want to read them. Yeah. So, and during the course of these little, I hesitate to use the word musical bits. These little repetitious parts, I'm going to call them, just for my own sake and for some kind of understanding of where I'm going here. Sometimes you'll hear other little instruments will join in, adding to it at certain points. So it's almost like some guy in the room has started a beat, and then this guy's come in and that guy's come in, and they've got an ongoing beat with them, and then everybody tries to find a place to fit in. That's what it feels like. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm being harsh to this group. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just telling it the way I hear it. And you also got to remember that I have no experience with this type of music. So, and this is true about all rock music. I was going to say this. Like, some forms of rock music are pretty easy on the ear and pretty easy to listen and pretty easy to get into. And as the music gets more complex, it gets harder and harder to get into. And progressive rock is one of those types of music that is not always easily grasped by people following it. And I know, because I love progressive rock, and even some of the stuff I love the most, it took me quite a bit of time to get into. This would take me even longer because my instinct tells me this isn't really music. It's just a lot of bits and things played together, and then change course and play something else, and then they change course and play something else. But I don't see a tie as to me, music is a song, and a song has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and tries to achieve some kind of, not always, some kind of message of some kind, but and is meant to be enjoyed by people listening. But this is just, to me, racket. And the next song is probably the best song on the album. So it's a series of keyboard and synthesizer fills in what I hear here, and it feels like the backdrop to a movie. Like if I was watching a movie, this would be the music that is going on in the backdrop. You're not really listening to the music, but it adds an element to the movie. For that reason alone, I like it. It's not bad. There's no vocals on this part either. So, and I haven't even named any of the songs. So the first title is Warhead, or Warheads, sorry, the first song. The second song is Etude for a Combo, opening a bit of Scattered. Yeah, definitely a good title for that one. Colorless Fog, actually it's not colorless, it's Colorless Fog That One Day Soon. That's the title. I can see that fitting here. It actually fits what they're doing here, so that's good. Maybe the best song on the album, the only one I gave a pass to. The last 2 songs are very similar. In fact, they're so similar that I don't even know where they broke. Like, I don't know where the break is between the 2 songs. There's no information on how long each track is. It was difficult to even find any information on the album. The only reason I looked for information is because I wanted to be able to understand what I was listening to. So overall, it was the next 2 tracks are Inside Out, and then the last track is Moon Songs, which I'm going to combine here because I didn't know where the separation was. It's open It opens very spacey, almost void-like, and then there's these voices in the void. That's the other thing about this album. Now that we've actually used the word voices, I don't really think there's any vocals on this album. There's a couple times where the girl appears to be saying something in a kind of singing kind of voice, and bordering on singing kind of voice. Synthesizers build this up quite a bit, have a big build up, and then it almost stops and then goes into something completely different, which has a kind of a rock-like feel to it, this part. And there's more of these kind of voice vocals, I'm going to call them, because they're not quite vocals, but they're not entirely just talking either. So, and they're female, almost always females. I don't think I heard. There might be one part where there's a kind of a male voice. I think it was in the second song. Yeah. And then there's right at the end of this particular track, at least where I think it ends, it's kind of a drum, guitar, bass, really heavy beat with some voice parts in there as well. And then it just abruptly goes into something else. This Moon Songs is very similar in a lot of ways. It's a bit more musical. This may be the more musical of the previous 3 tracks. It may be the most musical song on the album. It's very heavy towards the end of the song, and of course there's more voices. So these particular 2 tracks have about maybe 5 or 6 different kind of, I would say, musical patterns or musical pieces. That's a good word. Musical pieces that go on for a bit of time, then switch to another track. There's maybe 6 of these. Most of them, about 2 or 3 of them, kind of flow together, and then the other ones are kind of abrupt. Okay, so I think you're getting the picture of this album from me, and I apologize to people who may like this group and Thinking Plague. It's definitely an acquired taste here. It's kind of like Robert Wyatt was in the other episode that I did a few days ago. That took right off, so there's obviously people that are interested in what about him. And I actually, even though his music was very different than anything I'd listened to, towards the end I actually kind of was enjoying it a bit. This, I can't say that. I kind of was hoping it would end soon. So I don't really view this as music, and I'm sorry if that offends people. It's not meant to be. It's just my opinion, and I'm no expert on anything. This is just my first experience with a very different type of music that I've never listened to before. The little notes that were underneath I had to look at because I needed to know the name of the tracks so I could listen to them and kind of see what I'm going with here. Said that this was avant-garde and LOR or IOR, I can't remember. Anyways, it's the different styles of music that I'm not used to. There was progressive elements. Yeah, there are some progressive elements here. You can hear when they're changing from one musical piece to another, you can hear the kind of progressive elements to it. But I wouldn't call this progressive rock. I don't know what I would call this. It's very different than anything I've listened to so far. But the chances are good that I will probably never listen to it again. But you never know. I may, after a time, say, you know what, I should give this another shot. I tend to be a little bit open-minded that way. I'll give anything a chance. But I basically go back, and in the end analysis, I go to my gut about what I think it is, and then I try to tell the truth and try to say what I think it is. And hopefully it's not offensive, because it's not really meant to be. It's just my perception of what I'm listening to. And there are people on this channel who like that perception of what I'm doing, and they value what I'm saying, because I may say something about an album that they've never listened to before, and I may say, oh, this is really good, you'll like this and that, and they'll feel comfortable with going and trying it out because they know that the other stuff that I like, they also like. So that's part of it as well. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is day 13, of progressive rock albums from the 1980s. We will be back on the 14th with yet another one, and I hope you enjoyed this. So please like and subscribe, and we will see you again. Have a good night. Bye.